We still have a situation that is not optimum. We still really have a lot of things that need to be solved. We still have the annual famine in the northern part of the country. And so we see that even if the economy, the economic data says one thing, the reality on the ground is another thing. And so that's really the background for this conversation on local giving for social change. The question of what, in this age, in this time when things are changing, in this time when the funding is not as accessible as it used to be, in this time when, for example, the Kenyan civil society got a bit of a backlash from the government, what can be done? What are the solutions? And so that's what we are going to be talking about here. So before we continue, I'll just like to mention the organizations that are very central to this. And these are organizations that have been at the front line of just fighting for human rights and enabling human well-being and human dignity. And so that's Wild Guns and Foundation. There's Vice Versa Global, which is a media firm. There's KCDF, Kenya Community Development Foundation. But we also have represented some of our panelists, for example, from the Imf Foundation. And so just to say that we really honor the work that you're doing. We really celebrate the work that you have been doing. And we pray that from this discussion that we're even able to figure out how much more can even those who are outside, how can they plug in to what you are doing so that we can take this conversation forward? Ms. Grace Maingi, she's the Executive Director of the Kenya Community Development Foundation, which focuses on shifting the power to communities and works to promote social justice. I've known Grace for a long time. She's really a leading light, a leading figure in the civil society today. And just her commitment is her unwavering commitment to the sector. So maybe Grace, just a question is that, what's your take from what we read? Like what leapt out for you?
Kingwa, thank you so much for moderating this conversation today. So looking at the clip and even from discussions that we have had with different Kenyans about giving, Kenyans do give. I think that's the first thing to acknowledge. Kenyans do give. We give more towards issues that are proximate to us in terms of if there's been a death in the family or if there's an illness. And that is a culture that we really need to be able to celebrate, but also to normalize our giving. So normally when people hear the word philanthropy, they see it as a very foreign word, but philanthropy is what we do every day. We give, and we give in different ways. We give not only in terms of money, financial resources, but also in terms of our time, in terms of even the skills and knowledge that we have. So giving is a culture that we have in Kenya, but as we saw from some of the comments that came through, there's an issue about trust. There's an issue about where I'm giving the money, will it actually go to where it's needed? So we have to have a focus also on accountability and building strong organizations, strong systems, strong communities that can be able to actually use the resources adequately and really meet the needs of the communities.
We had sort of like an image problem where we look like we are all just agents of the West. And so has that changed, and what is KCDF doing? How are you guys maneuvering around that?
What we have found is that there are people, individuals in Kenya and corporates that actually do support civil society organizations. And that is also what we want to be able to encourage others to do. When it comes to individuals, there are those, even within KCDF, we have individuals who give money towards scholarships that we give at KCDF, individuals who give money for us to be able to put towards our projects across the country. Just recently, we were able to raise money for over 1,000 girls in Western Kenya. And Kenyans actually gave money towards sanitary towels, towards oil, soap, and were able to crowdsource funding from individuals. So we do see that there is a culture of giving. We've seen this even when we have had disasters in the country. People will be able to give through Kenyans for Kenya, to Red Cross, so on and so forth. But what we want to now encourage is a more organized giving, is a situation whereby it is normalized, and also that we give towards social justice work. That is really the crux of the matter, that we can also move towards addressing some of these issues in society.
As you were talking, I was thinking about how, like in the West, like giving is normalized. Like, you know, Oxfam, like people know that on their salaries, like every month, £10 or $10 is going to be deducted from my salary. KCDF has been very active in taking this conversation forward. I admire KCDF because not only it doesn't just talk the talk, it walks the walk. So I've been looking at even the model in which it runs, like it attempts to, the sustainability is quite key on it. And so given some of the forums that have been taking place recently, I know there was something, ActionAid hosted something with you, and I know KCDF has been part of the East Africa Philanthropy Network. What's the current feeling among such organizations?
So we're seeing there's a body of research that has come out in terms of not only checking and qualifying how Kenyans give, but also a body of research that is going into the depth of different communities that give. We're currently actually working with the Africa Philanthropy Network to carry out a research about women in philanthropy. So this is going to be a research not only in Kenya, it's also being undertaken in Burkina Faso, in Ghana, a few other countries in Africa. So what we want to do by this research is to show that we actually do give. We need to be able to strengthen the systems of giving. We need to make it easier for people to give. So what you'll find, as what you are mentioning in other countries, is that as you give, you get a tax rebate. So what that simply means is that if you give, for instance, $100, the government will not tax you, let's say $10. You'll get $10 not being taxed out of that money. And that encourages people to give. And so that's also what we're looking to see, that we can actually be able to grow that culture in Kenya, have systems whereby people are incentivized to giving and not giving because there's no money in government towards development, but recognizing in terms of sustainability, the more that we're able to work in tandem with government, the better that we're able to address the challenges that we have as society.
Those are good points. And as a lawyer, you might have some understanding of, is there that rebate for corporate organizations that if they give, is there a percentage, like, I don't know, is there tax affected?
So in Kenya, we do have organizations that are able, because of their charitable nature, to get a tax exemption certificate. But there are challenges in terms of how you can actually justify that to the Kenya Revenue Authority and to be able to then get the tax exemption certificate. Also, what you'd find is that corporates are able to benefit when they give to organizations that do have tax exemption certificates. But like I said, it's difficult then for us to cross over that individuals can also benefit. So if they give to KCDF, that they're able to also then have, a tax relief. That's something that we really want to encourage in this country.
We're going to now come to a very special gentleman, Dr. Seth Chandu. He's a retired medical doctor and he's a philanthropist, and he's spent a lot of his life really just nurturing the philosophy of giving and just carrying the philosophy of giving and making sure that it's something that he's not just talking about, but he's living. What's the role of giving, especially when it comes to day-to-day social issues?
Thank you. Basically, what I've realized is that when we come across foundations and various organizations who are giving for various developments and all that, the main question is about sustainability and structural development. But when you work at the grassroots level, the story is quite different. When I first attended a school about 15, 20 years ago at grassroots level, what I realized is that half the children was fast asleep in the classroom. And when I asked why, the answer was that these children walk 1 or 2 or 3 kilometers and they've had no breakfast. So they are hungry. And they will remain like that for the rest of the day till they go back home. Some of them bring leftovers from previous night, and that is how they sustain themselves. That shocked me, that even today, after so many years, we are struggling whether a child is going to get a meal today or not. And this was my biggest worry. And what I found out that when we introduced feeding programs in the schools, the attendance rate went up from 75% to 95%. the performance of the students increased and improved a lot. And I saw the happiness on their faces. And since then, we have never looked back. Today, we are feeding almost 4,000 to 5,000 children in various schools. And we see the happiness, we see the performance, and we see that there is a big difference in the development of their personalities. At the same time, what happens in education is this, that there are children who are doing extremely well academically. We get children who are coming up with top of the league. Like in KCP, they get about 350 and between 350 and 400 or over 400 marks, but they are not able to get into secondary school because lack of finances. These are the children who require help. These are the children who require assistance. Unfortunately, like on one hand, we said that individual philanthropy has been embedded in Kenyans right from the beginning. But now it has become more of an emergency philanthropy. That means someone dies and you pay for the funeral, or you contribute towards the funeral, or someone is dying and you pay for the health bills, or you contribute for the health bills. But when it comes to day-to-day, do you think of feeding a child? It costs only 25 shillings if you want to feed one child. So even if you are at the lowest earning, that means the minimum scale earning, you'll still be able to give 50 shillings to feed 2 children, give them 1 meal. But unfortunately, this is not happening. And what I saw on the video now, that's a standard answer that I get from everyone who, how do we know we can trust you? Now, if that is the answer, and that is the question, we are not going to move forward. People have to form their own groups, and they have to learn. So we have to instill the philosophy of giving right from the childhood. And this should be done by the teachers and the parents. This is not something, we are not doing anyone a favor. This is an obligation. This is a social responsibility that we owe to the society. Unless we do this, it will take years and years. A century has passed. Where are we? Even today, people are struggling for meals. Even today, people are struggling for medical care. Even today, people are struggling to look after a disabled child. I met a mother who had a disabled child, and she was in tears because on one hand, she had to look after this child. On the other hand, she could not earn a living. How do you help her? These are the questions facing the society today. And there are many children like that. Disabilities in form of cerebral palsy and other disabilities are very, very common. So this is where individual giving has to be now instilled in everyone, right from early childhood.
A bit of a victim mode. Okay, maybe it's not a victim mode. Maybe it's sort of like a helplessness, which is why when we watch the news all the time, we see naomba serikali. You know, I beg the government, I pray the government, I ask the government for help. And I think we are at a time in which it's no longer about, we are no longer fighting the government, and we are no longer getting points for saying, oh, the government haven't done this as civil society. But as civil society, we are now at the place of, this far the government has done, so now let us come in and give support. These are the gaps. And I think that's the spirit, that's a spirit, that's a new spirit that I'm seeing really coming out very strongly. And just to ask again is that, I like that you talk about philosophy, because it's not just a one day, you know, Christmas, take pictures, but it's keeping in touch, you know, keeping a finger on the pulse of how are things in Western Kenya, how are things in Turkana. So that's so powerful. I'd just like to get some more about you on your perspective of when it comes to giving now from individual givers and people of high net worth. What is their, in general, like what has your experience been? What do you think their perspective is?
There are some people of high net worth who do contribute, but we must remember, I just read, I think yesterday's newspaper or day before yesterday, that Nairobi has the highest dollar millionaires. Nairobi now is number 5 in all of Africa. Now, I don't think we get that much contributions from them. And if you look at the percentage of individual earners or individual high net worth, what do we get? How many people do we get? So percentage-wise, it's very small. In fact, I find that the middle level people give more than the rich people give.
What do you think is the reason for that?
I think that needs to be instilled, and it needs to be shown to them that this is part of their responsibility and obligation to the society. You cannot always say that it's the duty of the government. No government in the world can sustain the problems. It has to be the community or the society or the citizens who have to take this on. And if you do take that on, believe me, it works miracles. We have seen that happening in the last 15, 20 years. I've dealt with so many schools, medical institutes and all that. I find people going to the doctor and ask to go for a CT scan or an MRI. How many can afford? What percentage of Kenya population can afford? And then they say, oh, they're covered under NHIF and they're covered under the government hospitals. But try it out and you'll realize how tough it is. And we get patients all the time requesting for help. And that is where people have to contribute. We can do it at what we call as highly subsidized rates and all that. But in spite of that, it's a struggle. And there are day-to-day problems. We had an eye camp in Kangemi just recently. We saw about 200 patients. We found 50 of them required glasses, and they knew about it. But they could not afford to wear glasses. They could not buy those glasses. How do you go about that? Who helps them on a day-to-day basis? And this is where we all come in. We all have to join hands and help these people.
Some years back, I did a program with the Go Down Arts Center, and later on I had that they were actually calling up people to find out, to literally ask for money. And so sometimes I wonder if people would be given if there literally was like a campaign, because this culture change, and culture change has to be people with a certain mindset, and the mindset that we have of, oh, it's all corruption, nothing will change, that maybe there's need to, really poke them. And what do you think? How do you think is the best way to change mindsets when it comes to giving?
Well, people have doubts, and I agree with them that because of the dishonesty and the corruption that has gone on, it has changed people's mindset. But at the same time, there are projects which are going very well, which are doing extremely well, and we cannot close our minds to that. And secondly, if you are a donor, you are entitled to an answer. So you have to establish trust. If I build a classroom, and if the donor of that classroom is very happy with what I've done, when I do the second project, he's bound to give me. He's not going to ask questions anymore. But we have to give the results. We have to show the results. If you want to show them how the children are being fed, take them there anytime. Take an impromptu visit. And one thing very important that everyone has to remember is this, that charity does not mean compromise on quality. I go and eat with these children in any school just to make sure that the quality of food is good and they are getting a balanced diet. These are the important issues which people have to look into. Everyone can give. You can share. We have seen the street children sharing their food. So why can't anyone else share? And what I find is every time poverty plays a major role in people's lives, that wakens them up. When I saw a 21-year-old patient with a cancer, he had tears in his eyes. He had been going around in hospitals for 1 year. And he tells me, Dr. Shed, is poverty a crime? In fact, I could not resist my tears. So these are the problems that we are facing. We don't realize the day-to-day problems. We are talking big about structural developments and maintenance and sustenance. But what about day-to-day problem? Who is going to look after these problems? Wow. And it is us who have to look after this.
How do we go beyond this mindset of we are poor, we can't give? What can we do?
This has to be instilled right from the childhood, both by the parents and the teachers. And it can be done. Once a child realizes that he has to share, parents have to teach them that you learn to share. It will happen. It may take some years. Right now, there was a project going, not in Kenya, in another country where I was part of it, where everyone gets their lunchbox when they go to work, all the employees.
What country was that? I'm seeing people with passports.
They take their lunchbox with them. So they were requested that, can you share your food? Rather than eating and then throwing away the rest of it. So they were advised to share 25% of their food and get all that food together for the people who could not afford a meal. And it's working like a miracle. hundreds of people are eating.
That's really powerful. That's really powerful. Thank you for that. And what about for you, Grace? Culture change, what do we need to do?
I think it's important, as Dr. Chandu has said, for us to open our eyes to what is happening in society. We need to be more in touch and in tune with what we're seeing happening day-to-day lives, the challenges that people have. We can't bury our heads in the sand, regardless of where we are as a country or even as Africa as a continent. And I think it's very important, even as we do that, and adding on to what Dr. Chandu has said in terms of starting at a very young age, even for us wherever we are, simple things like he's saying, the culture of sharing. It's within even our African culture that we share, that the community was there to support in nurturing a family, nurturing a child. And so we need to be able to go that way, but also to change our mindset. It's important for us to start from where we are. We are already giving in terms of the proximate needs, but how can we now elevate that? And giving, like I said, is not only in terms of financial, but also with what we have in our hands. If, for instance, we work in a market and we can see that the market, there's been a lot of pollution, or people have been dropping papers or dropping plastic bottles, we can come together as a community. So I think it's us just being conscious of what each and every person is going through, but also seeing the needs within the community and recognizing that we all have something to contribute.
That's powerful, because you're talking about responsibility. Grace, what percentage of giving of the KCDF budget, for example, comes from local Mwananchi, one-on-one Kenyans, and what percentage is from like wider donor funds?
So at KCDF, currently 80% of our resources comes from outside Kenya, but 20% comes actually from local sources. I think it's important to add, even in terms of the other questions that you asked, for us as KCDF, even as staff members, we do give because we believe in the cause of the work that we do at KCDF. So we do contribute to KCDF's work through a payroll giving system. It's completely voluntary, and it's actually designed in such a way that it's not known, but staff are able to give to the organization. We've seen this with other foundations that are actually being able to do the same, whereby the staff actually give towards the work of the organization. So being able to encourage that everyone can give from wherever they are is very important, but also that for the cause that you believe in, give to that, especially when you have concerns around trust, or you have concerns around, is this really going to be actualized? As Dr. Chandu said, give to the causes that are dear to you, and you'll be able then to contribute and to follow through to ensure that then the work actually happens. So that's also very important.
Just one more thing I would like to add. KCDF is a unique organization, and of course, I'm very proud of it. But unfortunately, that does not happen with all the organizations. And secondly, when we are talking, there are a lot of misconceptions that, the education is completely free. Medical is completely free. But I find children even now not going to school. And when I talk to the parents, they say, okay, there are no fees, but there are so many extras that we are supposed to pay, and we don't have that money. We started a small school for about 150 children, and we were charging the parents only 500 shillings a month, including food. They could not afford in those areas.
Wow.
They would either come and give us 50 shillings or 100 shillings, and we know that they are poor. So that is the problem. Then you get a 9-year-old coming to standard 1, or 10-year-old coming to standard 1. But we feel that at least they'll be able to read and write by the time whatever they complete. So this is the situation. Even in the medical, we say medical is free, go for NHIF, go to the hospitals. But how many of you are able to complete that?
Yeah, you're so right that we take a lot for granted. We think that 500 shillings is something that just anyone can be able to access. And so I like that, because you're talking about being your brother's keeper. And as you say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, we really are not doing enough. Like there's a lot more opportunity for us as a country to be our brothers and sisters keepers. What's on the cutting edge of philanthropy and giving that maybe would be interesting for us to be aware of and just be in touch with?
We're privileged here in Kenya that it's a lot easier to give through mobile money transfer. So there are a lot of organizations, a lot of foundations that are doing work that you can easily go to their website and be able to give from the comfort of your home. So I think that is one good practice that we have here, that you're able to give very easily, and you're able also to see what is the impact of the money that you give. And I think we've made strides in being able to show, for example, for $1 or for 1,000 shillings, this is what you're able to support. I think other trends is being able to, for us to document in terms of the ways people are giving, but also who is giving and to what, so that then we can be able to encourage people to give, especially, like I said, to where their passion lies, but that, because that will open them to give also to other areas whereby there's a great need. I think campaigns and the crowdfunding that is done, the marathons that are held, the golf tournaments also go to a long way in terms of raising awareness on different challenges that are there and ways for people to give. And those are also things that we need to encourage. But for me, I think the rallying call is for each and every one of us, because we're already giving in different ways. Let us see giving beyond just the financial. Let us see it in terms of our time, our knowledge, our skill, and let's get engaged with the communities closest to us for us to support them.
More points that I would like to make. So one is KCDF gets 80% of its funding from overseas. I get 99% of my funding locally. So there are people who give.
Amen.
You know. And secondly, what I would like to say is this: you got to instill new ideas all the time. Like I said about the lunch boxes and sharing the food. I've introduced a new system in my schools from the donors. These days, birthday celebrations are a big thing, especially people who are well-to-do. They celebrate birthdays in a big way with a big fun. So what I've told them is this: why don't you celebrate your birthday and give 10% for celebration in the schools? It has worked. And the children are having a fantastic time, because on someone's birthday, we are able to celebrate the same birthday in the school with 500 or 700 children, and they are treated to the best.
Oh my gosh, that is very powerful. And you reminded me, I was at an event where, again, it comes back to culture and the meaning we give to money. I was at an event where a lady stood up and told us that she spent 70,000 shillings on her child's birthday party. And I think we're supposed to like feel a certain way, like it was a group of journalists. And I think journalists are really mistreated. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But like we're supposed to feel like, yeah, like, you know, God is here. But so our relationship to money, what we think about money, it again comes to culture and how we relate to each other. And something that's interesting is that people who give there's a certain relationship, there's a certain spirit of people who give. There's no hierarchy of I'm better than you, you're better than me. That's something that I noticed that I just find extremely, extremely interesting, that when they say giving is a gift that gives back, it gives you back your humanity. Because someone who's like trying to position themselves as better than everyone else, it means somewhere at the back of their mind, they actually feel that they're not. So it's a compensation mechanism.
Absolutely.
So just very, very important things that you have just shared with us. I like the concept of sustainability, the importance of being responsible, the importance of showing results. And because I think all of us are here to learn. All of us are here probably to give. We all want to give. We are here because there's a reason we are here. We want to just keep that culture going. What Grace talked about, engaging, the need to engage, the need to find out how is everyone else doing. And to be a bit of a devil's advocate, I think I could sort of understand why it's hard, because we're at a time in which mental health is skyrocketing, depression, everyone else is we're all in little cocoons. We're all in little cocoons. We're the nuclear family, First of all, in itself, it's breaking down. Even in our own families, we compete among each other. So there's a big need for bringing back the spirit of community. Yeah, there's a need for just looking at ourselves as human beings and asking ourselves, who are we? Why are we here? Am I here to compete with this person? Am I here to compete with my sister, my brother, or am I here to uplift them? So that's been, just the thoughts that you've shared, your insights have been extremely inspiring, and your work is inspiring. So thank you so much for just sharing all that. We haven't been able to watch the videos, both of Professor Bekinkosi and of the Nkoilale Community Development Foundation, but I suspect that we shall share them on our social media links. Again, reminding you that the Twitter hashtag is Local Giving Kenya, and be sure to tag KCDF, Vice Versa Global, IMF Foundation, and Wilde-Ganzen Foundation. And so we are joined by just some power ladies. We talk about boss lady. Over here, we have not just boss lady, we have boss ladies and power ladies. I'll just very quickly introduce them. We have with us Maureen Akini Odongo. She is the founder of iChild Africa. And Maureen has vast experience in field research. She's enthusiastic about community development and loves working with children. She's a girl child advocate and a STEM champion. So mnajua STEM? So STEM? You'll ask if you don't know what STEM is. So iChild mentors young boys and girls between the ages of 12 and 19 in areas not limited to quality education and life skill topics such as responsible citizenship, relationships, menstrual hygiene, and self-esteem, which are very important topics today. And just through this work, Maureen and her team discovered that girls in the rural setup can't afford sanitary towels that retail at just 50 shillings, which has led a lot of them to go for the concept of sex for pads. iChild Africa aims at reducing the statistics of teenage pregnancies by providing girls with pads every month. And this is made possible by mobilizing friends and well-wishers for contributions. Anyone can contribute to this vital cause. One pad saves one girl a month. Guys, let's give Maureen a hand. And then with us is Caroline Biden Zilani. And she's Youth Development Program Coordinator at Mathare Roots. And Caroline, Mathare Roots is a grassroots organization in the heart of the second largest informal settlement in Nairobi, Kenya, founded by young people from Mathare. And a group of schoolmates just came together and they decided, let's change the perspective and narrative about Mathare and make it a better place. And that's really what they decided to do. Caroline believes in the power of neighborhood regeneration activities, small things such as tree planting, arranging musical concerts, celebrating awareness-raising murals, to bring the whole community together and solve local challenges through the bottom-up approach. So guys, let's give a really, really warm hand to Caroline. Thank you so much. And a big part of the power of these two ladies is that they show us that giving is not about, I'll give after I've saved when I'm 50 years old, msinisumbue before then, So like they are inspiring, they challenge, and I hope everyone here is challenged about giving. It's not just money, but it's about giving support to your community. And maybe to begin with would be a question for Maureen. Like, what's your personal motivation to work for iChild Africa? Like why? Everyone else right now is out there enjoying themselves. It's the age of socialite. You're very beautiful, so you could as well be. But why? What is it that really made you say that? Okay, all that noise in the world is going on, but I want to do work with my community. What was the impetus behind that?
Thank you for that and for the invitation here. Thank you. Growing up, there's so much I lacked as a girl, and I wished no one to go through what I went through. So I observed my community and decided that whatever I did not get, let the girls and the boys in my hood not miss that. So I was chasing my purpose, and it's also now my passion, and I enjoy doing that.
again, we're seeing the word responsibility coming out, and that's touching, because for a lot of people, it's easier that they grow up in hard circumstances and then they just escape and they're like, whew, I don't ever want to connect with that. Has that been your experience? Like the people who maybe you grew up with, maybe who are in adverse circumstances, what percentage of them have that same spirit of, I'm going to remain, I'm gonna uplift my community? And what percentage would you say are like, guys, peace out, mimi niko maju? What percentage would you say?
I won't talk about percentages here. I'll talk about individual social responsibility. It's about Maureen and what I want to do for my society, for my community. So I will not look at what Kamenchu is doing or what Grace is doing, but what is my responsibility in my community. And then I want the girls that I'm mentoring currently to also mentor others when they come of age, so that it's a ripple effect. Everybody's benefiting from the other.
That's powerful, because you're actually movement building. You're building a movement even without being aware of all those fancy words, and that's really inspiring. Like, and I'd be curious to know about your family, like about you and your family. Are you the firstborn? And because I suspect some of this might have come from your parents, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I'm the firstborn, and I learned the hard way how to be responsible myself. All parents do what is called trial and error with their firstborns. So they might be tough with you, they might be soft with you. But now as a firstborn, I have to learn the hard way. And now I'm going to be a mother, or I'm a mother to many girls and boys as a firstborn. Yeah.
Wow. Just very, very powerful. And what about for you, Caroline? What was the inspiration for you to work with these causes and initiatives that you undertake with Mathare Roots? Because one could say it's a thankless task. One could say you'd rather be out there hustling, man for himself, God for us. But what made you say that, no, this is what I'm going to do? People can laugh at me or can say I'm doing amazing work or not. Yeah, what was your experience? What was your motivation?
Thank you so much, Kingwa, and for giving me also this platform. So I grew up in Mathare, and you all know Mathare is the second largest slum in Kenya. And there are so many challenges, from gender-based violence to seeing girls getting pregnant at an early age. So those were the challenges that pushed me to joining a organization and wanting to change the narrative that is existence here.
Out of the people that you grew up with, and I'm sort of like taking the temperature in terms of trying to understand how many people remain and how many people sort of just leave. Like, how I'm going to put the same question of percentages to you if you'd be able to answer it. Like, and it's not about comparing yourself with others, but in terms of just taking temperature, like how deeply rooted is that spirit? Are you one among many, or are you just a very small group out of all the group that you grew up with?
I would say 1 in a million, maybe. But I believe right now young people are starting to see the challenges and also are waking up and trying to join a different organization or forming their own organization to see that there is change in our communities.
Thanks, Caroline. You know, one of the reasons that I have so much respect for you is because you are, you know, in life they say there's an uphill task, but I feel like you have a particularly, what you're doing is even more challenging than maybe someone who lives around here, because so we had a webinar a couple of months back, and it was about responsible citizenship, and one of the people present was someone who grew up in Kibera. Well, he later became like pretty big in civil society, but he pushed the question back at me. He's like, why are you expecting people to be responsible citizens when the only reality of their life is a government that exploits them, that kills their colleagues, the young men in the community, extrajudicial killings, that does not provide anything for them in terms of water, in terms of electricity. And for the first time in my life, I was like, wow, it actually makes sense. Like, if I grow up in that, then I'll sort of have, actually, number one, a grudge. I'll have a grudge against the world at large. I'll have a grudge against the government, and I'll have this spirit of, I have been deeply, what's the word? I've been deeply taken from or disadvantaged. So now let me go out and get mine. How did you, I'm just curious, how did you get beyond that? You got beyond the victim mode. You got beyond, it's powerful, it's transcendental. It's on a whole level, even spiritually, one could say. So how did you guys manage to do that?
I would say it's passion also for our community and wanting to see a different Mathare. And also, I believe some of us also were giving. I think somebody gave so that we are here. And so we also developed that culture whereby we want to give back to our community and we want to see other lives change also from the same community.
Okay, thank you. So to Maureen, the work that you're doing, do you do it with a small team or do you try to involve the local community? Do you involve them in fundraising or in volunteering, or are they sort of on their own and you guys are just a small team doing your own thing? How do you go about it?
Thank you. I work with students in a university called Alupe University as volunteers.
Called what?
Alupe University College in Busia County, the only university in Busia County. So the girls and boys there volunteer with us. And then also I engage the community because I have school-based mentorship and I have home-based mentorship. So people that they can relate to. So the community is involved, anyone who wants to partake in support of the girls and the boys is always welcome. Everybody, nobody is always locked out.
And what about for you, Caroline? Thanks, Maureen. What about for you? How does the community come on board? Do they give support? What's the experience been?
The community contributes by their time, also their skills and knowledge as well, because we also work with other young people who went to school, were educated, and have great ideas.
Okay, and we missed some of from the video on Nkoilale Community Foundation, which KCDF has been a partner with. What's been the experience working with them and the community in raising resources? Just leading in from the manner in which Maureen and Caroline have been able to include the community in what they're doing. So what has been the experience on your side?
I think it's very powerful what Caroline and Maureen are doing, because they're not only giving of their time, they're giving of their skills, and I even know of their own money. And so being able to see and learn from the pain that you've had, growing up, and giving back is very, very important. And it's there where there's a great need where you tap in, that is very, very important. So even with Nkoilale that we have been working with, this is a community foundation in Narok, close to the Masai Mara. They've been able to assess the needs within the community and be able to see which are the most pertinent needs that if we address them, we'll be able to change people's lives significantly. So they've been able to set up various projects. And this is a testament to how diverse community is. So they have not only worked in the area of education, they've worked in the area of livelihoods, they're working in the area of environmental conservation, because we recognize, and even from Maureen and Caroline's work, that even as there's a particular need, sometimes you also see other needs that come from the community. So when you work with community foundations, you're able to then address a myriad of issues. you're able to open different pathways for more support for the work to happen. And so that has been our experience with them. We've walked alongside them. We've been able to see where they need some support. We as KCDF have also learned a lot from them. So it's not a one-way street.
That's so interesting. Such as what?
We've been able to learn that it's important to listen to communities and to understand where the diversity is coming from and what resources they have. So even as we would bring financial resources, the community are able to bring skills, they're able to bring their time as well. And when I talk about skills, for instance, at Nkoilale, they have been able to use the locally available materials to develop soap. The women make soap that they're able to sell to lodges at the Masai Mara. So those skills that they've been able to tap into, the time that the women give to be able to undertake that they can then get an income that goes further to improve the lives within the communities. We've been able to see the power of a small idea being birthed into a great idea, and being able to see how do you really ensure that you tap into the various expertise that is there. And it's important not to take one solution from Narok, the exact same solution, and parachute it into Kilifi, for example. Being able to understand the nuances of communities. That's what they've taught us as KCDF.
I just love to see when big organizations are learning, because we have this, there has been this stereotype of parachuting and saying, we are telling you to do this, listen to us. And there's been very funny outcomes, even in some, the development studies sector has shown like some very strange outcomes when that happens. So that's interesting. And I like that you talked about resource, because resource is everywhere. But when the mindset is not present, a group of people will think that they're only in poverty. So that's very powerful, what you're talking about, resources, like that, and working with them from where they are, and the thing of what do we have with us. So I just really like that. So back to Caroline and Maureen, it's a question of what challenges have you faced along the way in your work? And actually also, Grace, I'd love to hear from you. So maybe we could go from Caroline and then come to this. So what challenges have you encountered? And maybe what support might you think, like if someone here has a skill or something, what is it that you'd appreciate in terms of support?
I would say one of the challenges is resources, because most of these organizations are not stable. Some of them are upcoming, and we lack people who want to maybe come and invest in us or invest in our ideas or in our innovation, because there are some organizations that are doing innovative work, but they lack. And also lack of recognition, because we are grassroots organizations, and when we apply for funds, sometimes you cannot single-handedly be given that, because you're not recognized up there. So you need to partner up with other organizations or affiliate with other organizations for you to have or to be recognized.
All right.
I think for us, one challenge that I think cuts across for very many organizations working in this sector is how can we improve the environment? How can we have a more enabling environment whereby it's easier for organizations to register, to be able to work where they are. It's easier for them to access resources and support, not only from county government, but from national government. It's easier for them in terms of being able to have linkages with other actors who would want to work in this area. So the enabling environment is very, very key for that to thrive, because that will also contribute to accountability.
That's a good point. And before we come to Maureen, I'd also like to ask, so maybe there's someone who's listening or someone who's here who'd like to, maybe has an idea. They want to do something in the community. How do they start? Like someone who's just has not even put much thought to it. What do they need to do?
I would say start where you are. Don't overthink it. Don't, wait to have this humongous framework. There's a need, you have a solution, start. That's always the hardest thing to do. And good ideas always grow into greater ideas. But start where you are. Do not wait to have everything in place. And there is support out there to grow the idea. We don't all want to be, national organizations. Some of us want to be community-based organizations. But the most important thing is start where you are. Get people around you who support your work and who will also inspire you in the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Grace. And as you're speaking, I was just thinking that there's so much resource in this country in terms of human resource. So many retirees just at home, doing nothing. I think of my parents. Community work is what has sort of like kept them going. But so many unemployed people, community work. And the interesting thing about community work is that's even how you create a job for yourself. So I'm just saying that, my gosh, this is like this is like the tip of there's so much. This is such a whole universe. So thank you for that. Just talking about the infrastructure that with that, there's to then give the opportunity for more. And so what about for you, Maureen, in terms of challenges that you faced and what sort of support you would appreciate if anyone may have?
Thank you. Like I will tell you for free, I told an African myself, have supported about 10,000 girls.
There's a need to democratize this spirit. Everyone needs to be able to do it. Everyone needs to feel empowered. So we're very honored to have you with us as leaders, showing us the way forward, because it's these efforts that keep humanity alive, that keep humanity awake. And we're at a time in which humanity is at almost like in a coma. So just to say that we appreciate you and we honor you for your work. We're very happy to have with us Mr. Gatere. Mr. Gatere is the head of Imf Foundation, and he has vast experience in managing corporate philanthropic networks, leading sustainable development projects in different organizations from various geographies in Africa. As a strategic planner who clearly connects purpose to action with passion to shape and optimize opportunities, James has worked with not-for-profit organizations and led diverse teams in multiple country projects. His experience includes program implementation, networking and collaboration, resource mobilization, and knowledge management. He holds a BSc Mathematics degree from the University of Nairobi and has various qualifications in project management, people management, and accounting, and he is a certified mediator. You could just give us a brief overview of the Imf Foundation, when it began, what it does, who you give money to, because I'm sure a lot of people here might be interested in partnering, collaborating. Yeah, so maybe just a background of the Imf Foundation.
Okay, thank you very much. INM Foundation. INM Foundation was set up by INM Bank. It's a corporate foundation. And when we think about it as a corporate foundation, INM Bank had been involved in CSR work for a period of time. But it wanted to change. It wanted to be more focused. It wanted to see communities transformed. And as it moved from a CSR work to actually seeing communities transformed, they set up the foundation about 3 years ago. And the foundation was set up with 4 areas of focus. The first one being environmental conservation. And it was noted that very few people work in the whole area of environment. The second area was education and skills development. The third area was enabling giving. And the fourth area is economic empowerment. Those are the 4 areas that the foundation focuses on. The foundation works through implementing partners to reach the most vulnerable communities in Kenya. And it tries to respond to their felt needs. In a nutshell, that is INM Foundation.
Thank you. I missed it. What year did it transition from CSR to an actual foundation?
2019.
Oh, so that's pretty recent.
Yes.
That's so interesting. And what's been your experience working with the corporate sector and private sector partnerships with different organizations when it comes to tackling these social issues?
When you're working with the private sector, first of all, as you see the private sector coming into that whole area of working in the social field, they're coming from a different mindset. But that mindset is a very rich mindset that they can come into the field. One, you realize that the private sector comes into the field with a whole mindset of accountability, a whole mindset of performance indicators. They want to see what are your indicators of success. They want to see what kind of an impact are you going to have in the ground. Remember, they've been pushed into a field that they're not too familiar with. The whole element, which is very, very common in the social field of trust, they look at risk, they look at numbers, they calculate it. And telling them just to trust people is a hard thing. So you need to warm them up to that whole field about learning how to trust. They need to feel that they're dealing with people who have their structures in place and can do the different things. When they feel that is not clear, they hesitate. So that's a different ball game is out there. But I have to say that more and more of them are waking up to that call that they need to play in this field.
Indeed, and I see, so the aspect of accountability, performance indicators, impact, and it's so interesting how there's a disruption happening because civil society has not been very famous for accountability, for performance indicators. Grace can correct me if I'm wrong.
I can't grab the mic fast enough to correct you. I think civil society has actually a long history of working through log frames and frameworks, and that has actually been a backlash towards civil society, that we have gone too much into log frames and frameworks that we are not in contact and in touch with the community. So sorry, I had to interrupt you before my civil society friends wonder what has happened to me, just to correct that mindset. Yeah.
Okay. And I want us to hold that mindset because, you know, about the elephant in the room, that there's a certain perception we have, and I'm part of civil society, so I'm also, there's a perception that we've had for a long time of mainstream civil society as just, to use very rude language, just eating big money and driving big cars. And so what, thank you for just coming in to correct, and possibly part of the journey is that there needs to be an image, not a makeover, but something needs to be addressed on that. And James, what you're saying is that, what I'm seeing rather is that I'm seeing that there's almost a newer way of approaching. Although, yes, Grace is saying that it has always been that way, but so this is my bias. I apologize for my bias. And James, you also talk about trust, you talk about risk, and you talk about structures, which we had also addressed earlier. How more, because one of the challenges that has also been talked about has been sustainability. And so it would be interesting to hear what you are thinking around that. And I suspect, I suppose that because there's an INM Foundation, there's a KCB Foundation, there's an Equity Foundation, and I probably, you occasionally come together as peers and review each other's work and talk about best practices and that kind of thing. So what has been your thinking around switching from charity to investing in long-term structural change when it comes to giving for good?
Thank you very much. Where do I want to begin? First, as Grace brought up the whole area of log frames and sometimes concentrating on that more than actually going down to the ground. But the thing that I want to bring up is the how to. The how, I would want to capture simple things. For example, are you able to show that you're doing what you said you're going to do? A simple question like that. You've just had some two lovely ladies here talking about what they're doing. And the question is, how do you capture that and show this is what I am doing so that we can get the story? Second, how do I feel that it's not just an urge of the moment because you had nothing better to do? Because I need to feel that you are able to do it for those 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And when many times you hear people asking, do you have that experience? They want to see whether you have that staying power. Because if they don't feel you're having that staying power, they wonder whether they should trust you. And unfortunately, that is the beginning of stability, sustainability. Many times, organizations, when you talk about sustainability, they don't come over as people who have this staying power. As you're most likely aware, many startups don't last beyond their 3rd year. And so they want, the corporates, the private sector want to support people who look like this is what they want to do. We need to bring that up in our young people who have set up these lovely organizations to show that even as things go forward, as they get their funding, they will continue. You will not suddenly leave, for example, Busia and run to Nairobi because now you have a little money in your pocket and you feel, my opportunity is in Nairobi. Because then what you started off, you will not end up doing what you said you're going to do. And that becomes a struggle. So that's where sustainability comes in. When we think about supporting your structures, the first question we look at is, before I think about the physical structures, do you have your governance structure in place? So what form of governance and people holding you accountable to do this, that you're working with others, it's not just an individual realm. Do you have that in place? If you have that in place, we can work with you. But you might tell me that you're a new startup. Then I'd say, how do you lean on those ones who are more established so that they can help you get that in place? Do it in partnership to get those things in place, because then we can see how to support you. Unfortunately, there are many people who you try to support in what they will be looking at the infrastructure part, but they don't seem to have the other part running. So you can end up having structures up in place, but not fully utilized because there's some things that are not thought through. One thing we learned through COVID was many people ended up suffering because all they were relying on is, can you give me? And when you ask them, have you thought through how you can sustain yourself? What are the kind of projects that you're doing to keep yourself running? They had not thought through that. So to me, sustainability, and in fact, the whole angle of resources, and I've had a lot of that shared here. We need the resources. We need the resources. I like telling people that is not where you begin. Where you begin is, I have this structure in place. I have this thing that I'm doing. This is what I am able to give. Now, can you help me move to my next step? If you don't have that and you're just saying we need the resources, unfortunately, many times that's where we struggle.
You brought out a lot of interesting points. The aspect of staying power, the aspect of relationships, the aspect of structures, which has come up time and again. So everyone who's here that's wanting to set something up, just keep that in mind: governance structures, physical structures. And also that we don't begin with resources. But also another thing that you talked about is the thinking, because you said you ask the partners, have you thought about going about it this way? And so that's interesting, because then it tells us that there's a need for thinking, information sharing, in terms of support to people who want to set up, or organizations that want to set up. There's an opportunity to give support in terms of design thinking, just setting up. But I'm also curious about this movement that the corporate sector is taking towards setting up foundations. What was the thinking behind it? Is it that the CSR model was not working? And also, as a foundation, being registered as a foundation, does that give support like tax rebates and that kind of incentive? I'd be interested to understand that.
Thank you. When you think about the movement, basically organizations, private organizations, corporates are being pushed to think about a triple bottom line. They're being pushed to think about giving back in forms of how do you benefit the people, how do you benefit the planet, and how do you make your profit? That triple bottom line has pushed them to think differently. Second, we're being pushed by different regulators. True, it is not yet a regulation in Kenya, but it shall be soon, to think through society, to think through environment, and not just to think through profit. So we're being pushed to think about what we call environment, social, and governance frameworks. And that term ESG is coming up more and more. So there is a push. And that is from one angle. But then there's also the whole feeling about, is money enough? Just making profit, is that enough? And you start feeling that you can make a lot of money, but you don't get satisfied. Your satisfaction will actually come when you see people's lives transformed. And so there is a push by people who are just feeling just making the money is not good enough. You see that from very wealthy people in the various parts of the world who have reached that position. And they're feeling, no, just making the money is not enough. I need to transform society. So all this is a push. And so when we're thinking about this push and trying to move away from what CSR looked at, CSR was very much a PR. It was something good. I'd shake hands, you'd see a big fat check. My pictures would be in somewhere. You'll put a caption somewhere of how I donated 1, 2, 3. But now if you actually want to see a transformation happening in the communities, you want to see a revolution happening in the communities, the approach needs to be different. And that is where you're seeing people are pushing through foundations, because their approach now is seeing transformation happening in the communities. Thank you.
I love the word transformation. And it's so interesting to hear it coming from the corporate sector. It's like, wow, that's very interesting. And we're going to come back to, I'll also loop Grace into the question of her own experience and insights in terms of working with the corporate sector. But before I do that, I'm going to read a few comments from online. So some comments and questions. So there's a question. There's a reason I'm reading it now. My battery time is 1%. So to INM, what is the appreciation and recognition to community structures that have been functional? Must we change how communities work? There's another comment from the audience. I joined KCDF local fundraising and mobilizing support way back in 2019, but I did not complete the program due to finances. Is it possible to complete it now that we're able to raise the training and mentorship fee? Another question is, my question is related to when you start an organization to a cause to assist a community somewhere. I think Grace might have answered that. A question to Grace, many people, including Kenyans, tend to give to causes they're close to. For example, medical aid, school fees, funerals, etc. How best can we tap into this potential to direct people to, say, purchase insurance, contribute to school basket funds? What are some of the support systems available that one can tap into to make a more sustainable giving program? And then the last, not the last question, but a question to Dr. Chandu. In Kenya, we don't have sufficient information about HNWIs. You'll tell me what that is. HNWIs. Yes, good one, thank you. In Kenya, we don't have sufficient information about them, what they give to and what motivates them to give. How best can we tap into high net worth individuals for them to support social justice programs? Another comment and question. Dr. Chandu, it is admirable to see your deep understanding of charity and the need to understand situations from the grassroots level. Question, please. Do philanthropists prefer to support NGOs, institutions that have been existing for a longer period, 5 years plus, or are they generally willing to give newer NGOs a chance? How do we get ourselves on the map? And then when will we shift the power? Actually, we have 3 minutes. Okay, I think there's 3 more comments. So When will we shift the power from African Philanthropy Network to Tandale Community Foundation? Do we trust community-led foundations, or are we holding the power to access resources? That's an interesting question. Another one, should you be political in your approach to philanthropy, considering the political class might somehow, in a way, again, somehow hinder you if they so decide, such that you involve them before beginning and when continuing? Another very interesting question. Two last questions. Many local corporates are inclined to give in-kind donations. While this is admirable, is there a particular reason for that? And is there a way to change that culture?
INF Foundation is a clear example of a corporate who works through other foundations. We have a partnership with them as KCDF, and there are various other corporate foundations that also do that. In terms of there are those you'd find that work directly in the communities where they want to work, and those that work through other mechanisms, through community foundations or other organizations to reach the community level. And I think that's important to recognize that. It's important to recognize that growth. The things that we can learn from other jurisdictions that also have been able to incentivize and to encourage and to legislate around corporates giving. The culture that is there in India, whereby the legislation actually provides that for organizations, for corporates that earn a particular percentage of profits, a particular percentage, if they earn above a particular amount, my apologies, a particular percentage goes towards investing within the communities. And what was interesting to see in India is that it was a natural progression for corporates to start doing that, because they had already begun giving. So even, as we have corporate foundations giving, being able to see a percentage going towards communities is really admirable. So we do have a lot of corporate foundations working closely, addressing community issues, understanding how communities work, and leveraging on relationships that community foundations and other organizations have in the community.
Thank you. Thanks for shedding light on that, Grace. We're going to come back to Dr. Chandu, but just for now, probably the last question to James. I like the fact that you talked about the question, is money enough? Because it again points to what Maureen talked about, which is a question of purpose. And that the fact that we are there asking about what is the meaning of life? Is money enough? You die with your bank account full, but an empty heart, and and all that. And for somebody here, for somebody who's listening in, who would like to work to get support, maybe from INF Foundation, what kind of support do you give? Is it support in terms of resources? Is it support in terms of expertise, like helping them think through the process? So that's sort of two questions. That's the first part. But then the second part is also, how do they reach you? Do you go out pinpointing, saying, KCDF, you're doing amazing work, I want to work with you? No, I've never heard about you, stay away. Like, how does, if someone wants to collaborate, are there opportunities available, and what's the best way of reaching you?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with speaking about structure. As an organization, there's a whole question about whether you have your structure in place. And you had mentioned about community structures. All I would say is, one, can you get yourself registered? Even as a CBO, even as a society, can you get yourself registered? Just being registered already shows a step that you want to keep this thing working together. Two, can you have 2-3 people that you're working with? So it's not just an individual. So, and you're working as a team, and we can feel that there are people who are holding one another accountable for this. And 3, then can you think through what exactly you want to help, what exactly you're carrying through ETC. And we get many people who then write to us. So that is one way that we get. People will send to us. And one of the things that we do, and people need to realize this, is the first thing that we look at is your social media. Social media is current. It is the in thing today. So we'll look at your social media page. One, do you have a social media page? Do you capture what you're doing on the social media? Is it current? Can it give me a feel of what you're doing? Now, setting up a social media page is not an expensive thing to do, but it's already telling your story, and you're actually showing these people. It gives us another feeling that you're legit. These people are there. There is something they're doing, and we can actually see it on the social media. So that is one thing that we look at. So we want to be able to feel that we're dealing with an organization, and we're not just dealing with a briefcase people who just want some money.
I was about to say briefcase.
So there are things like that that we do to feel that we are dealing with the right organization. Why do people ask about, 3 years, audited accounts and things like that? It's all to feel that you're dealing with people who are actually serious about what they're carrying out. What do I then tell the startups? I tell the startups to come under other already established people, because corporates and corporate foundations and even private foundations are not placed to be on the ground doing things. They will be looking for the KCDFs. They will be looking for the other people on the ground that they can work through. They see themselves being able to support, but they need people to work through. And one of the biggest challenges that many organizations, especially private and corporates, is the how to. They feel they want to give back. You have many people who work in corporates, who work in private firms, who feel they want to give back, but they're looking to the how to. And that how to actually comes from the CSOs, because there'll be the connection that you have with the society on the ground. They will show you how to connect and do things on the ground. And it's so if you would come together, work with through the umbrella of somebody who's more established, one, you're learning how to get your systems running, your governance running, and you're getting yourself established. And two, there's actual work you're doing on the ground. You're actually capturing that. 3 years will pass very soon. And you'll then say, now, I feel I'm established. Can you support me directly? I can go on, but let me stop there.
I like what you're saying, because it's about incubation. Like if you're small and you don't have everything ready, you can approach an organization and get incubated. Just, you know, the way, like a nursery, when we doing tree planting and everything, that when you're beginning, you wouldn't plant the seed of the tree on the ground, but you first of all put it in its own pot and then transplant it. So it's the same analogy. So thank you for that, James.
Hi, my name is Maureen. Akechomondi. I have spina bifida and I appreciate myself. And I want to ask a question. How can we help kids with disabilities by their education?
Say that again, sorry.
How can we help kids by their education? Kids with disabilities.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stefano from Kariobangi Social Justice Center. I'm a human rights defender and a coordinator of Kariobangi Social Justice Center. So the only challenge we have as a community-based organization is about it's about the resources, because for us to apply this grant or resources, we are being told you need to have some experience. You need to also check on your structure, because most of the organizations in the community, they are not well empowered in terms of the infrastructure, because for us, we are being told you need to have a policy. For us, it's a bit challenge in the community level.
And I'm going to ask you to just ask your question. And then.
Yeah, so my question is, how can you empower us as the community-based organization in terms of the empowerment, in terms of the resource mobilization and also the structure?
Thank you so much, Stefan.
The challenge that we have in the community is that most of these community-based organizations are led by people from the community. Some who have, don't have the privilege for higher education and such. So you find that when we are competing for funds or grants, we are competing with international organizations which are able to hire very experienced or very learned personnel. So how can we bridge that gap and to make sure our community-based organizations are able to access our resources the same as international organizations, given that they are making the most impact at the community or grassroots level? Thank you. Again, my name is Mariano Angelo. I come from Matare. I'm a community youth organizer.
Thank you. Let's give her a hand.
In terms of children with disability and education around disability, there are quite a number of organizations that are working in this area in terms of being able to support education for persons with disability. And so I think it's just an information gap. How do we be able to get that information out in terms of where that resource can be found? So I think that's something that we can easily do. We know quite a number of organizations, United Disabled Persons of Kenya, DISEC, just don't remember the name off the top of my head. I call them always by the acronym, but who are doing a lot of work in terms of education and disability. So we would be able to do linkages in terms of being able to open those pathways. In terms of the question around resources, how do we resource mobilize? How do we be able to grow our structures? One of the ways that we're able to do this as KCDF is through a program that we have called Change the Game Academy. Change the Game Academy is available for free online. And also there is a Change the Game Academy app. So through the app, you're able to download the app, you're able to use it both offline and online, and you have the ability to go through a course, not only in terms of local resource fundraising, but how do you mobilize support? So apart from that, there are other products that are out there. There are other training opportunities that are out there offered by other organizations, but I would invite all to just log on, go to the KCDF website. There's a Change the Game Academy. There's a link, and you're able to access that for free. Now, there's a question that came in through the chat box. There are those who want to have our own one-on-one training, and they want to go a step further in terms of mentorship, and we're able to also offer that. So for that individual who dropped out in 2019, simply get in touch with us at KCDF, and you can join the next cohort for training. That's a paid course because we offer mentorship for 9 months, whereby a trained mentor works with the organization, helps them to raise resources locally, but also how they can engage in civic engagement and mobilizing support. So there are both paid opportunities and there are also unpaid opportunities that are there. I think it's just how do we be able to speak more in terms of getting the information out about the resources that are there. The third issue is with regards to how do we locally grow our own resilience. KCDF has started a hub, a financial resilience hub, in partnership with an organization both in Uganda and Tanzania. So this is a hub we're going to be able to provide this resource for organizations to grow their financial resilience. How do you undertake asset building? What kind of structure do you need to have? How are you able to raise resources and grow your sustainability? So that's an ongoing project that we're actually putting the framework together, but that will be a resource that is available in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania with support from the Ford Foundation. So I just request anyone who has any interest, just go to www.kcdf.or.ke. You'll be able to get a number of resources in terms of the technological support that we give, which we also give in terms of software, donations that we're able to provide, training opportunities that are both paid and for free, and a lot of other information. So I just invite them to visit the website. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm realizing that one of the gaps in the ecosystem is information. Because on Saturday, we held a forum on financial literacy and financial resilience. And like right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish we had all that, but it's good that we know. And I'm sure that even other organizations that are not here represented, that they also have that. So that's an interesting gap. So we are bookmarking it. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Grace.
Thank you very much. Just one last point from me. One, it starts with you. So wherever you are, start doing something, start giving back, start pulling people together, start your actions on the ground. 2, work with people like what you've heard from KCDF and from other such organizations to see what you need to build up your skills. As a foundation, we can help sponsor such kind of trainings, such kind of things that would help you build up your skills. But we would need you to build up your skill because you'd realize those ones who really have the heart to give back to their society and want to do it will look for ways in which they're going to build up their skills. They will want to take it forward. It won't be just left at that level that, oh, I was just waiting. And when you start seeing that they are actually putting that effort to do, you'd have something to sail on to help them move to the next level.
I only would like to say that everyone wants to do something for the community, for the people. Like James said, we have to start from somewhere, start from wherever you are, and you will be able to support. I've seen that what's looked as impossible when I started is now taking shape, and it has really helped the society at large. It's not easy. It takes time. I work longer hours now than I used to work when I was a doctor. I work 7 days a week, and my profession has changed. I was a medical person, now I'm a beggar, and I still manage to beg well. Thank you.
You've given us a challenge in terms of even our approach to life, because a mindset encompasses everything. And so for that, we are just so very happy, very grateful for your presence. So thank you, our guests, our panelists. We had Maureen Odongo, we had Caroline Bithe, we had James Gatere, we had Grace Maingi, we had Dr. Seth Chandu. And so audience members, just help me in appreciating them. Let's give them a hand.
So we will be able to then share the contacts with those who registered through the webinar. That's something that we'll do after.
Yes, thank you so much. And remember, the hashtag was Local Giving KE, and the organizations behind this, KCDF, Vice Versa Global, White Ganzen Foundation, IMF Foundation.